Liam McNeeley hasn't committed just yet. Why that's a good thing? You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Should I say that in my Charles Barkley voice? Guaranteed bonus bets. Watching NBA basketball last night, but today's show is one of calm and relaxation. Yes, we have the NFL draft tonight. I'm wearing my Giants gear, but the transfer portal is one of the best and worst things about the offseason now, because it reminds people of the hope and promise, just like of every NFL season. Every NFL season, you get to wipe the slate clean, and that's what's happening in college basketball now. You can build off the foundational pieces that you have if you can keep them from going to the NBA or from potentially entering the transfer portal, and there is truly no time off for these coaches. I've actually know coaches personally who were dedicated at their craft, very good at what they do, that had to step away from coaching at Power 5 conferences because quite literally you don't have a weekend off. I'm constantly refreshing Twitter now, looking at my phone since I started doing this to see if I got a preemptive text that Liam is committing or which recruit is taking a visit. It's okay that Liam is taking other visits. I think we've seen two recent UConn champions, Andre Jackson and Donovan Clingan, wearing other jerseys from recruiting visits that have circulated online. I certainly have. Guess what, guys? They ultimately chose UConn. I'm sure those visits to Syracuse were fantastic. Let the kids take all their visits. The first rule of any business negotiation, which is all the portal is, and all recruiting is now, is you don't take the first offer. Now, UConn is hardly the first offer Liam has had. He's decommitted from Indiana, so he's had several. But the sentiment stays true, and he's being loyal to it. He's being loyal to himself. He's being loyal to his family. He owes UConn and others who are recruiting him nothing. Maybe Hurley and his team gave him what they're willing to spend from an NIL collective standpoint. Anyone who has ever worked solely for a paycheck and you're making great money, and then you go to a company that may not have those same deep pockets, and you actually love what you're doing. Those paychecks aren't as robust, but you feel better. But that's my initial speculation, that maybe the offer is missing some numbers on it from Liam's perspective. So that could be it. UConn's not particularly, a poverty school. We're not a mid-major. But I don't think we're matching $750K or $900K, some of what I've heard the numbers being thrown around for. But outside of the money, Liam and other kids, look, they're kids. He's 18 years old. He may be 17 for all I know. I know Cooper Flagg is. They get free stuff when they go to these places. Hell, if someone gave me an interview right now to go work for a company and I had no intention of working for them, I'd probably still take the meeting. For all you know, Liam McNeeley has friends who are huge Kentucky fans, and he's going to give them all the free UK gear. Michigan and Dusty May are asking for a visit. That maize and blue with the Jordan logo is pretty fire. I don't love Michigan. I don't root for them, but their jerseys are pretty great. I'd rock some J's with those colors. But look, some of the things I've seen online, that gives me pause that he hasn't committed yet. Why is that? What's going on? Relax. You know that before you got married or before you were with your significant other, there were other people, right? And for some of you, pretty spicy take here, Your partner may also have been courting others while they tried to figure out if you were the one. Maybe you were dragging your feet. Unheard of, right? And even more common, in a less spicy take, how many of you are listening to this podcast at your office or in your car or at work and can't stand what you do for a living and are constantly looking at other opportunities online? LinkedIn, a sponsor of the show. Indeed. Why is that? Because you're human. And nobody is more human than an 18-year-old kid who is being courted by adults to do something that few people can do at his level. It's flattering. You get flown out, you get told how awesome you are, what you can do to help, the program, what it would mean to the coaching staff, how they've followed you for years. They probably have a video of your highlights. It's a true tell me more about me moment. And it goes away the older you get. So if I'm Liam, I'm taking all the visits. I'll flirt with all the pretty girls. I'll make no promises. And I'll pick the best fit based on what I see and what I'm told and the feeling he gets. Look, we all know, in my biased opinion, UConn is the best fit, but it's not just from me. You know, we had Tobias Bass on from The Athletic, who's a Texas native, went to Texas Tech as an alum, is very familiar with Liam. And his comment to me was that he would be shocked if Liam doesn't choose UConn, that the fit is what it is. It's what he wants from a perspective of an offensive team that's going to allow you to shoot, but also to develop your game to get to the next level. And it's not as if that is only exclusive to UConn, but there's some uncertainty. Can Mark Pope truly get Kentucky where UConn is now? He's brand new. That has to be a total roster rebuild. Can he sell Liam on being the kind of the star of the show? Because at UConn, he wouldn't be the star. He would be one of the stars. Does Dusty May promise that he's going to get a ton of minutes and, you know, play in more of a traditional college offense? He's an innovative coach, already been to a Final Four at essentially a mid-major. So he's got options. He's not going to Kansas. He's definitely not going back to Indiana. So it really is, I think it really comes down to UConn, maybe Kentucky, maybe Michigan. I think the fit is UConn. And I think we're going to see that pretty shortly and in due time. Give him his space. Let him pick the choice that he wants. Ultimately, I think he's coming to Stores to make us a better team and solidify us as a potential 3-time national champion in a row. Well, we'll bring in Joe Arruda, a beat writer for the Hartford Courant, coming up after this. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game. Pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches in the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone. Anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing the landmarks with Wrecking Ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboards. Let me tell you about my recent experience with buying tickets. Ever have one of those frustrating moments when you're trying to snag tickets for a Major League Baseball game? I sure have. Whether it was uncertainty about seat quality, struggling to find last-minute tickets, or just not finding any good deals. But here's the game changer. GameTime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Seriously, this app makes getting tickets a breeze, but the prices actually drop as the game time approaches. It's like getting rewarded for procrastinating. I've been using GameTime for a while now, and let me tell you, it's life-altering. You can browse through upcoming Major League Baseball games and other hot events, snagging killer last-minute deals, and even double-check your views from your seat before you buy. And the best part, you get all-in pricing with no hidden fees at checkout. So if you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for your $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions may apply. All right, we're back with Joe Arruda. I appreciate you being here, the beat reporter for the UConn Huskies for both football and basketball. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mark. Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for doing this. I spent the first segment kind of talking about kind of some of the ridiculousness you see on Twitter and Facebook about the initial assertion that we need to kind of relax when it comes to these guys making the decision. I'm talking Liam McNeeley. I'm talking Aidan Mahaney, who's on campus today. Koby Brea, these guys who have been linked to the Huskies in basketball. Do you agree that it's natural for them to be actual human beings and want to take a bunch of visits to kind of get all their ducks in a row and do their due diligence?
Yes. I mean, this is a decision that will, define the trajectory of, their life for the next year, at least, if not longer down the line. There's a lot of dollars, being talked about as well, being moved around, and playing time and roster spots and all these other things that they need to consider, especially with NIL and all of this stuff going on. So, yeah, if there's a question that starts with, do we need to relax? I'm probably going to say yes 9 times out of 10, no matter what it's about. But yeah, I mean, it's to expect a kid to take one visit and commit on the spot is crazy. But, especially with everything that they need to consider, especially now with, when you're bringing in 3 kids to visit, you don't have a specific, feel for what their role could exactly be yet, because it changes with each new addition. So I think there's a lot to consider. And yeah, I mean, they're kids too. They're under 22 years old. They're young kids. McNeely's a high school kid. So yeah, I mean, to expect them to make that big of a decision that fast is nuts.
What can you tell us about the incoming visits of Aidan Mahaney, which is there today, and I'm assuming Koby Brea will be more on the weekend? We got any insight into kind of, the template of what they go through?
Yeah, I mean, they, for most visits, they go out to dinner and they, schmooze them up a little bit, put on their best shirts and tie their ties and everything, I don't know if they wear ties or not, but you get the point.
Kamani Young definitely is not wearing a tie. He doesn't. I love Kamani's fit when he just has the button up all the way.
Yeah, they all do that for game days. I can't really picture. I guess Hurley wears a tie every once in a while, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have any insight other than what has been reported, already. I think it'll be interesting. I think all 3 are guys that can help out, that'll fill needs. And Brea is a New York City guy. So speaking of Kamani, there's a connection there.
Mm-hmm.
And Mahaney's a California kid. So maybe, you have a little Hassan Diarra, Joey California. They're obviously way different players, but you could have that sort of dynamic there.
And we'll get more into when we do Portal Kombat in the next segment, but who would you prefer? Like, if thinking about, covering the team, I always have people come on and ask through the Dan Hurley lens, right? So put your best Dan Hurley impression on, and if you were in that war room, kind of deciding between, let's say you get a commit from, they're all interested in coming, or else they wouldn't be there. But you get more of a yes from the 2 guys that we're talking about, the Koby Brea and the Aidan Mahaney. Who would Joe Arruda rather have as the transfer pick if you could only have one of them?
That's a tough question. So are we assuming that they got McNeeley in this scenario?
I think they're the odds-on favorite regardless. We can debate that just because he's going to Kentucky or Michigan to kind of do visits doesn't really mean much other than he's just a kid. But I think, let's say they get Liam. And so now it's the choice between Aidan Mahaney and Koby Brea.
Mahaney can do a little bit more. Obviously, Brea is a great shooter. He shot 40% his first year, went down a little bit, but he also had his numbers. He's taking way more shots. So yeah, I think Mahaney can do more. And with the bigs that they have, I think he'll be good in facilitating the offense. I don't know where exactly he fits into the lineup. But, Brea is the best shooter that's available right now. And, McNeeley's the best shooter coming out of high school. So you could potentially see, one of the best shooting offenses, in the country. And, it's interesting to think about how they would fit in Hurley's system. So yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a ton of them. I didn't watch a lot of Dayton games. I
Yeah,
remember Mahaney from when they played last year in the tournament. And he didn't play the best in that game, but I mean, that team was hard to play against, that UConn team
sure.
then. But yeah, I mean, I think either way they work. I think it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what roles are available, because there's still other decisions that need to play out. That I think are
So
also waiting on that.
no, it's a great. It leads to my next question. Would it surprise you if one or more of the 4 sophomores on the team entered the portal this week as protection against, what could be on the horizon? I think the prevailing theme is Alex Caravan is doing the Tristan Newton route where he'll be back after a lengthy combine route, but that's a month away. So if they don't get in this week, they can't get out, so to speak, right? So I don't think they want to go, but would it surprise you if any of these guys of the 4 sophomores left from last year's class did enter the portal by the May 1st deadline?
I think it would surprise me, yeah, at this point. I think if you asked me right after the season or right after the parade or something, I probably would have said no. But like you said, we don't have much time. And yeah, I mean, Jalen Stewart doesn't seem like he's going anywhere.
Yep.
Every conversation I've had with Solo Ball doesn't suggest that he'll go anywhere. The same thing with Jaden Ross and Singare is interesting, because it'll be interesting to see how he develops and what sort of roles open up for him. Because obviously they're going to try to bring in older guys while he continues to develop. He's still, pretty young as far as basketball goes. So yeah, I think I would be surprised.
Yeah, no, I think it's a lot of moving parts. It's not as simple as it used to be. So there's but we'll talk more about the portal and who's staying, who's going, in Joe's opinion, coming up after this. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs and slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we play a lot of fun little games here on Locked On UConn. Portal Kombat is one of my favorites. It's been used a million different times. But before we get into that, which is essentially just I choose 2 players in the portal, Joe gives his opinion if they were not necessarily if they'd be a fit for UConn, but who would he rather see in a UConn uniform? That's the game. But I wanted to ask Joe because he's a great writer. We've go subscribe to the Hartford Courant. If you don't otherwise, he's great at what he does. I really appreciate his insights with the basketball team this year. So I'm curious about NIL and transfer portal gone wild here. Do you feel as if the NIL deal is exactly what it was intended? And just your overall thoughts on where it's going and maybe some improvements. If you're the czar of college basketball, how do you change NIL and what's going on currently constituted?
Well, it's actually been the opposite of what I thought that it was intended for, which I think a lot of people, it wasn't supposed to be all this booster money that's in the game that's filtering through and affecting all these decisions. NIL at its base is name, image, and likeness. It's ad deals, it's commercials like UConn is doing, and we've seen some of the funny ones. They provide some good content, but yeah, I mean, I think it's the opposite. It's weird seeing reports that kids are asking for $500,000+ in money to go to a school to play basketball. It's weird, but Yeah, I mean, I think it's the opposite of what it was intended for. If I had to fix it, you know, it's tough, man. It's tough. I think it's hard to. You mentioned putting a genie back in a bottle, and
Yeah.
it is hard to do that. But we've seen how fast these rules and laws and everything can change. So I think it could be done with someone much smarter than me handling it. But yeah, I mean, it's the opposite of what it was intended to be.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's the good news is kids are getting the money that was promised of name, image, and likeness, but it is essentially pay for play, right? One of the things that we're seeing is I don't know what the budget will be for Liam McNeeley. These are things that guys in previous administrations didn't have to worry about. I think there was always some form of dirty money in college basketball and college football for years. But since it kind of came to light, to hear numbers like, I think with Liam, $750K from Indiana, $900,000 being offered here, it's like you really do have to test the waters on if a kid really wants to play basketball or if they're just trying to get the bag, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and that's what I think Dan and the staff at UConn does well is when they're recruiting players, they're straight up and honest with them. If a player comes into a visit and asks about NIL right away, they're not going to go to UConn unless they're really
Right.
good. They're not going to UConn. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The whole thing is crazy. But yeah, I drifted off your question, but
You're good, man. You're good. All right, let's jump into Portal Kombat. Let's have some fun. I'm picking two names, and there'll be mostly people that you've either covered or kind of adjacent, right? So these two, I think you've definitely covered, obviously, because one of them is a Villanova guard. So we have TJ Bamba, who's in the portal, or Luke Goody from Illinois. Who do you want if you had to choose between those two?
If I had to choose between those two, I haven't seen a lot of Goody, but obviously other than the game that they played against him. But I think TJ Bamba, I think he could shoot, and I think I would go with Bamba.
Yeah, they're both similar in size. What Bamba's 6'5", 6'6", Goody's probably touching 6'7". I think Goody's a better shooter, like pure shooter, but Bamba gives you a little more athleticism and is probably just as good a shooter. I don't think he's being used properly at Villanova, and that's one of the reasons why he's in the portal. All right, let's do one more, and before we get you out of here to do more important things with your day, let's go. Let's keep it with the guards. We already did. This is another. I'll use another Villanova guard. We got Brennan Housen, who's been linked to UConn. There's no mention of him being a visit. I haven't heard anything from sources that I deal with. But so we got Brendan Housen, shooting guard from Villanova, or I'm going to give you Dante Maddox Jr., who is already transferred. He's a Toledo kid, 6'2" guard. He's going to Xavier, so you'll see a little bit of him next year. Who are you picking between those two?
That was tough. I don't know.
Definitely wasn't easy on you with that one.
No. I'd say I think Housen, just because I remember looking into him a little bit when his name was first brought up when he went into the portal. I didn't really look into Maddox that much, to be completely honest with you. So that's where I'm kind of stuffed. I'll go Housen because I've seen more of him.
Look, and I think this is a perfect time to say this before we let you go, and stay with me to the end. With I'll kind of take us out. But one of the things I said on one of the shows is there are 1,700 guys in the transfer portal. I don't know a person that does this full-time 75 100 hours a week that has a beat on every one of these players. So you are not in there's no problem with you not knowing who that gentleman is. You're fine.
Hey man, it's hard to keep track. It's so hard.
It is. Do you have one more Dan Hurley question before I let you go? Has any of his superstitions rubbed off on the beat reporters? Because I found myself I'm wearing a Giants shirt for the draft tonight, but I found myself wearing like the same UConn shirt as soon as I started doing this podcast. It was right after the Creighton loss. So I'm undefeated. I'm 12-0. I started wearing the same thing every day. I started eating some of the same stuff every day. Thanks to Jared Cotler for the Chick-fil-A. What are your thoughts? Like, did some of that kind of get into people's minds?
I don't think so. Nothing that we shared with each other, at least. I use the same pen every game. But
Okay.
that includes losses, so I don't think that's really superstition. But I mean, it did pretty well this year, I'd say. They only lost 3 games, but use the same pen.
Yeah, no.
I don't think, I mean, a lot of us wear similar clothing, but I think that's just because of our job and who we are. But no, I don't think that there's anything that stands out.
Yeah, I mean, he's very wild. We love him. Love his superstitions, love his superstitions and his idiosyncrasies. So I really appreciate you, Joe. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now and available on the free Fire TV channels app. Well, look, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, here with Joe Arruda of the Hartford Courant, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.